Hey guys, Zane here with another one take review, and today I wanted to talk about Artificial Brain's new self-titled album. This is the third and most recent studio album from New York-based death metal band Artificial Brain, who have definitely become cult and critical favorites over time, as their previous two records have definitely gathered them a pretty large fan base. While Labyrinth Constellation and Infrared Horizon, their first and second album respectively, were very solid and consistent albums, I do think that their self-titled record is, without a doubt, their best work yet. This record has all of the heaviness that you might expect from a band like Artificial Brain. I mean, the vocals are unforgivingly guttural, of course, which is something that, again, is something you could predict from the first two Artificial Brain albums. The entirety of Artificial Brain's work on their self-titled album is certainly one massive blow to the side of the head, but I mean that in a very, very good way, as a lot of death metal, or at least the most effective death metal, is very powerful and striking in the same way that this record is. Of course, the power behind this album is a major factor as to why it's so successful. However, Artificial Brain's third studio album shines more so in the realm of production than anything else. Unlike a plethora of death metal albums of a variety of types of death metal that are willing to sacrifice distinctiveness for density in the sound and overall atmosphere and soundscape of the music, Artificial Brain refused to do that, as they maintain again all of that heaviness I mentioned before, while ensuring that everything in its own individualistic manner stands out. The drums are crisp, the guitars often soar, whether they're doing powerful riffs or they're doing epic solos that are kind of hidden within the mist of the chaos of death metal, and even the bass shines a little bit, though only in the very subtle way that most death metal bass work does. This is all for Artificial Brain's better, as overall I would say that this record is, because of the fantastic, crisp production on the otherwise chaotic and destructive record, makes for one of the most memorable death metal albums of the past couple of years. But I don't just say that because the instrumentation is excellent and so is the production. A lot of this record is remarkably catchy as well. Many of the chunky riffs and melodic guitar parts are executed beautifully and ultimately are bound to stand out to you in some fashion. The progression and the overall compositional aspect of Artificial Brain's work on their third album was obviously very well thought out, and significantly more well thought out than a lot of other death metal that I could name from the past year or so, give or take, ultimately resulting in their third album not only standing out within their discography, but standing out within the entire running pack of death metal bands. In fact, seeing how memorable Artificial Brain's self-titled record is, it almost feels like I'm witnessing in real time death metal legends in the making, and so are you. There's just something very powerful about Artificial Brain that genuinely feels like they're going to become metal icons to some extent within a certain niche, as this record is incredibly consistent, as have been their previous two studio records, and there are a number of songs here like Cryogenic Dream World, for example, that really just stick around and stay in your mind within your realm of listening for a period of time, and that can be attributed to a lot of factors. Again, that glorious production, the slight dissonance that Artificial Brain purposefully embrace, which ultimately feels less like dissonance for the sake of dissonance and dissonance for the sake of actually progressing a song in a different and interesting way that's unique from the band's peers. There's so many things that you could connect the memorability of this record to, but my point is, you won't forget it after you listen to it, especially if you're not super familiar with death metal. So overall, Artificial Brain's self-titled third studio album is absolutely fantastic. There isn't a weak song on here, and I think it's something that everybody should actually end up hearing if you are at least a slight metal fan to some extent. So I'm going to give this record 4.5 stars out of 5. Again, the weakest songs on this album are still great, and it's all just sort of hyped up, executed beautifully due to that production, which is the shining aspect of the album overall, if I'm being totally honest. But unlike a lot of other death metal, this can be catchy, it can be extremely memorable, even if you aren't into the sound of death metal, and the slight embrace of dissonance and other less than popular tones and styles and sort of flourishes in the band's music. It really just makes for an experience that's absolutely excellent, and I would highly recommend. So again, 4.5 stars out of 5, and with that being said, that's the end of this review, and I'll see you guys in the next one.